This assignment requires that you identify the parts of a character. The template provided gives you this. It says here part of a character. What you're supposed to do here is type in the name of a part. So you would just double click, highlight, and type in the new name of the part that you're trying to identify. You could also use and should use this line to identify that part of the character. Of course, the line can be rotated, hover on the outside like that. An even easier way to work with that line is to use the white direct selection arrow, which allows you to select the inside of this vector object. And what you can do is you could just select the one end of it, like right here, and adjust this. Or I could select this end by itself and move it. But the black arrow selects the entire object and allows you to rotate it. So I will leave that up to you. Another thing about this object is you'll notice there's a little dot on the end, or this line I should say, and you might be wondering, how do I modify that? How do I change the color of the line? What if I don't want a dot? What if I want an arrow? Well, all you need to do is to get a hold of the properties of this object. Alright, so if you go over here to the stroke, which should be open for you depending on what version of InDesign you're in, you can take the end and adjust it this way. See, I can pop that and change it into a multitude of different end shapes. And if I want to change the color of it, that's a little bit different. I'll have to switch over to color and find myself a new color. Now, color is a whole topic. It really is. I suggest just going to the swatches panel and picking from the colors that are available. But if you want to mix a new color, you can. Just click on the new swatch button to create a new swatch. It'll make a copy of whatever swatch you have selected. Double click and mix a color. Yes, the best way to do it is just to mix it. This is set the CMYK color mode. I mean, that will work just fine. Basically, you just move the sliders until you find the color that you want. This is just color mixing. Again, we could have a whole conversation about that, but we're just going to skip it. You get the idea. Cyan's blue. If you take all these all the way down, you see cyan is blue, magenta's pink, yellow's yellow, and black is black. So if you want a blue, you could add blue. Then if you want to add a little bit of magenta to that blue, there you go. You get the idea. And when you're done, you press OK. Like let's say I wanted some weird green. I can press OK, and there you have it. And it's saved for me as well, which is nice. Alright, so that's how you modify the line. Now, I included an extra file with this for those of you that want to go over the top. And by the way, you should definitely change this font. I really don't like it when students just stick with the font that I gave them. So just pick something else out. Have some fun with it. Feel free to change the color of the background. You can really have fun with this. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, you're permitted to use Photoshop. And you could save an image in here instead of just editing the type. What I did here, and the video will help you with this, is I created this template, which might look a little daunting to you, and Photoshop isn't a requirement of this class, but if you know how to use Photoshop, or even if you don't, I'd say this is pretty easy. You could zoom in, I suggest, and you can do that using these tools right here to zoom in and zoom out. This is the zoom tool. Again, this is optional, so I'm not going to go very deep. I'm assuming some of you have taken Photoshop before. But if you wanted to identify the parts of the character the way it does in the book, the way it does in this illustration here, this guy right there, if you want to do that, you can. So say, for example, you're trying to identify the stem. See the stem right there? By the way, that in both examples, I've provided I've given you a reference in both of these, so you don't have to open your book or anything like that. Again, this is just about practice. But here's a stem, right? So what if you want to identify that? Well, what you could do is click on the clipped color layer. By the way, you can also change this typeface, which I do suggest, just like I said before. You pick something else. But I'm not going to change it for now, so this video doesn't take an eternity. And click the clipped color layer. That's the only layer you really have to do anything on. Check this out. You could pick whatever color you want from the color picker and identify. In this case, I'm going to identify the stem. I always hold down Shift personally to create straight lines. See how that line is nice and straight? And I'll do another straight line down here and just fill that area in. And there you go. I've identified that area. It looks pretty good. Not perfect, but good enough for me. This is a descender. I could identify that. I could just go around identifying things this way. Again, I like to draw straight lines, like I said. Makes this look a little cleaner. And then when I'm done, I could just go save, go to File, Save As, save this as a JPEG, or you could quick export it as a PNG. It really doesn't matter. You don't really have to keep this file. I'll save this onto my desktop. Save it on there. You guys can see the games that I play when I have time. And then just go to File, and Place Embedded is what I suggest you do. Actually, I'm thinking the wrong program. It's really just File Place. And I'll work my way out to the desktop, find the deal I just created, open it, and there it is. I just pasted it in here. I'm going to back up. But here's the image. Oh, guess what? I made a mistake. I pressed Control Z. I'm not going to update the video because the same thing could happen to you. I love when mistakes happen because you see how it works. Never have anything selected when you place an image in here, or it will place that image inside of whatever you had selected. I had typography selected, this text frame, so it's put typography in there. If you do that by accident, it put the image inside the typography text frame. If you do that by accident, you can always press Control Z and then just paste it again, like I did here. Notice that this actually is the exact same size as your template. And I also made a mistake. I forgot to turn this thing off, which is supposed to be a reference for me. So that's another good mistake. That's what happens when you're in a hurry. Let me get this out of the way. I can move this guy out of the way. I can delete it, and then I could just use this, the same as before, to identify everything. Do not try and do this little stuff, like the little tiny text inside of the Photoshop file. It will get pixelated and nastified. Part of the goal this week is to get you comfortable in Adobe InDesign. So this should be done in InDesign, but you are allowed to place an image in here if you want, using the template that I provided. All right. Good deal. I'll make a separate video on the second half of this assignment. You know what? I won't make a separate video. Let's just jump right into it and talk about it. What is going to happen in this part of the assignment? Well, basically the goal is to identify, to show you can identify fonts. This category is an old style. This is the category of serifs. Notice that there's lines dividing this up. These are serifs, these are sans serifs, these are scripts, and this is just decorative. Notice how it's divided up. You're supposed to show me you understand how to identify different fonts. I can't identify stuff for you because you're just going to copy. But I do want to point out some things to you. In your book, it actually shows you how to identify these. Specifically in your non-designer's book. And I have this open to talk about it. So for example, it says old style. It tells you about the diagonal stress right here. It explains all the details of how you identify old style. And you do have old style fonts on your machine. I don't care what machine you're on, what PC, Mac. There are free ones that came with your computer that are old style. It's super common. And then it actually tells you some, which you could actually work off this. Times, Garamond, Saban, Bell. And here's a modern font, slab serif. This isn't everything. This actually isn't identifying. You're identifying more than this. There's more in your non-designers, or there's more in your 2D. Your type rules book. I don't know why I said 2D, because I teach color theory, but it's the type rules book. There's more examples just like this or similar to that explain. You're supposed to be demonstrating that you know how to identify. If you can't identify fonts, you're really going to have a very, very hard time in this class. Especially if I find a student who doesn't know this difference between a serif and a sans serif, it means that you're not picking up on anything. And I believe in you. I'm sure you can understand it, but just make sure that's a priority for you. In fact, I suggest that you go to the end of this chapter where it says be conscious, and it gives you this quiz. And you actually do these quizzes in your non-designer's design book. Show that you know how to identify old style. Like, which one of these is old style? I believe you can do it. Take these. And you have a similar quiz that you're doing this week. But this is a different type of quiz where you can just circle stuff. Just if you don't want to circle it in your book, that's fine. But I would take this quiz. So back to this. So this video doesn't become eternal. Procure a unique font. So you're supposed to pick a font. So in other words, I'm gonna highlight this and pick a unique font here real quick. It's not going to match the category because I don't want to give anything away. But let's say I chose this weird font, Mexcellent, and the font name, I'll just remember it's Mexcellent, which is a strange name. But I would just insert that name in there. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't change the category, because the goal of this is that you're showing that you understand how to identify each category. And this is just showing the font that you chose. I will use this font to let me know that you understand and that you're able to identify what an old style font looks like. So this is how I grade. I look at this, and this would fail. By the way, when I zoom in, I'm pressing Control Spacebar and then Control Spacebar Alt. That's my way of doing it. You can do Control Plus, you can do Control Minus. You can do this a million different ways, but that's how I do it. But again, this would fail. I'd say, well, no, clearly there's no serifs here, and this is a decorative font, and you wouldn't do well on this one, but it does give you the idea of what I'm looking for. Obviously, I want you to pick an old style font and then tell me the name of that font in case I want to Google it or look it up, because I may not identify it. All right. All right, so those are my tips for this assignment. I hope you find them helpful. Of course, there might be other questions. Feel free to contact me. I'm always updating my materials. Sayonara.